Well, guys, it is now time for my Week 14 picks of the 2024 NFL season, as this season's coming close to an end. As last week, I went 15-1. Oh my goodness, the only game I got wrong was the spanking that the Dolphins had against the Packers when I thought the Dolphins were going to win. I think this might be the first time ever I had two one-loss weeks in a season. My goodness, it pushed my winning percentage over 70%. That is insane. And I think this might be the best win percentage I ever had in terms of picks. But dang it, so close to undefeated. Although this time it wasn't close like 2 weeks ago. A last-second comeback for Seahawks is better than a spanking that the Dolphins took. And of course, here's the regular season and playoff standings of the season end today. In the AFC, it's the Chiefs with the bye, with Broncos at Bills, Ravens at Steelers, and Chargers at Texans. And the NFC, it's the Lions with the bye, with Commanders at Eagles, Packers at Seahawks, and Vikings at Falcons. And my Super Bowl prediction is the Lions over the Bills. Alright, so now, let's get to our Week 14 picks. Starting off with a huge one in the NFC and the NFC North, as it's the Packers at the Lions. The Lions won the last one. The Packers haven't beaten them since 2023. And the Lions haven't won at home against the Packers since 2022, as the Packers try and improve their record from last year, and the Lions are trying to get their same wins from last year. And if the Lions win this game, they will clinch a playoff spot for a second year in a row. But even if they lose, they could still get in depending on what happens for the rest of the week. So the Packers, of course, spanked the Dolphins on Thanksgiving to get another win season and match their win total from last year. And the Lions, that's right, there we go. They were destroying the Bears on Thanksgiving, and then they choked it away until the Bears had their giant goof and all that, as they have to continue to keep the longest win streak in the league going, as they now won 10 in a row, I think. And I think it'll be pretty close, because remember, when the Packers visited the Lions last year on Thanksgiving, they kind of spanked them, so it can go either way, but I'm going to pick the Lions for this one. Alright, then we get to the Sunday games, starting off with the Jets at the Dolphins, as the Dolphins won the last three. The Jets haven't beaten them since 2022, and they haven't won in Miami since 2015, although that was in London, remember? So the Jets, of course, have a losing record. If they lose, they will be eliminated from the playoffs. So they really need this win badly. Also, they need to hope the Chargers and Ravens lose as well, but the Ravens don't play this week. So the Jets, of course, blew it as they lost to the Seahawks again. Another game you think the Jets would get, and they choked it away. Meanwhile, the Dolphins, of course, got spanked by the Packers on Sunday night for Thanksgiving, so now they have a worse record than last year. But still, overall, the more better team, so I'm going to pick the Dolphins for this one. And then we get to a huge NFC matchup, as it's the Falcons at the Vikings for the first time since 2020. As the Vikings won the last one, the Falcons haven't beaten them since that 2020 game, and the Vikings haven't won home against them since 2019. And of course, the Vikings, if they win, or a whole bunch of other things happen this week, they'll make the playoffs for the first time since 2022. So the Falcons, of course, have now lost 3 in a row, as they lost to the Chargers in a game they could have won, but Kirk Cousins had one of the worst games of his career, throwing 4 interceptions, and they still almost won that. Complete choke job there, as they're trying to match their win total from last year, as they're barely holding on against the Buccaneers, who are right behind them, only got the tiebreaker saving them. Meanwhile, the Vikings, I already forgot who they played, but they did win in the end regardless. Oh yeah, they beat the Cardinals in a close game. They barely pulled that off, as they now won 5 in a row in their surprise season still. And yep, I'm going to pick the Vikings for this one, and Cousins return to Minnesota. And then it's the Saints at the Giants for the first time since 2018. As the Saints won the last one, the Giants haven't beaten them since 2021. And they haven't won home against the Saints since 2016, as the Saints try to avoid their first losing season since 2022. So the Saints, of course, lost to the Rams in a close one, as they're trying to stay alive in the playoffs, which even with a loss, they still can survive for right now. Meanwhile, the Giants, of course, lost whoever they played, so it won't come to my head, as they have a 7-game losing streak. They're already out of the playoffs. Nothing's going right for them, and yeah, I'm going to pick the Saints for this one. Alright, then it's the Panthers at the Eagles for the first time since 2018, as the Eagles won the last one. The Panthers haven't beaten them since 2018, and the Eagles haven't won at home against them since 2014. So, the Panthers, if they lose, they will be eliminated from the playoffs. Oh, that's right. No, if they lose and the Buccaneers and Falcons win, they could be eliminated. But they're out of the playoffs in terms of wild card, but they still might have a chance to win the division at 3-9 at the moment. So hold my tongue on that. Eagles, if they win and get some help, they will make the playoffs for the 4th year in a row. So a lot on the line here. Panthers, of course, lost another game to the Buccaneers that they were spanking pretty good, but they choked in the end. Meanwhile, the Eagles spanked the Ravens pretty convincingly. And yeah, I'm going to pick the Eagles for this one to match their win total from last year. All right, then it's the Browns at the Steelers. As the Browns won the last one, the Steelers haven't beaten them since 2023. And the Browns haven't won in Pittsburgh since 2003. As the Browns, if they lose, they will be eliminated from the playoffs. So they need this if they want to survive. No playoff spot yet for the Steelers. So the Browns, of course, had a hard-fought game against the Broncos, but they choked it because famous Winston's Bakery opened. You get a pick, you get a pick, and you get a pick. 3 picks, 2 pick sixes, the reason why they lost the game. In a quite close game, surprisingly. Meanwhile, the Steelers, of course, they spanked the Bengals as Burrow had a bunch of turnovers and all that, and they have another winning season. As always, as we all know, the Steelers will never have a losing season. And yeah, I'm going to pick the Steelers for this one. Alright, then after that, it's the Raiders at the Buccaneers for the first time since 2016. As the Buccaneers won the last one, the Raiders haven't beaten them since that 2016 game. And the Buccaneers haven't beaten the Raiders at home since 1996. So the Raiders, of course, are eliminated after they lost that Black Friday game to the Chiefs, which they choked at the end. Man, they had a good chance and they blew it. Meanwhile, the Buccaneers barely beat the Panthers when they really probably should have lost because they did not play that good. But they're back at 500, trying to get over 500 for the first time in weeks. And if they win, the Falcons lose, they'll retake the lead in the division. But of course, if the Falcons win, it doesn't matter because they have the ultimate tiebreaker. And yeah, I'm going to pick the Buccaneers for this one. Alright, then it's the Jaguars at the Titans. As the Titans won the last one, the Jaguars haven't beaten them since 2023. And the Titans haven't won at home against the Jaguars. No, the Jaguars haven't beaten the Titans on the road since 2022. And the Titans, if they lose, they'll be eliminated from the playoffs. So they need this win if they want to stay alive. So the Jaguars, of course, lost to the Texans. And at the end was actually a comeback game they almost had. Unfortunately for them, they lost Trevor Lawrence for the year after he took a dirty hit and all that. So he's gone for a year. Now they got to deal with, hey, Mac Jones, who actually played really good in that game and on backup duty. But they couldn't beat the Texans in the end as they're now eliminated. Just plain spoiler now. Meanwhile, the Titans, I know they lost was it a close game? I can't remember who they played though, but they lost in the end. But yeah, I'm going to pick the Titans for this one. Unless the Jaguars play like they did freaking just last week against the Texans. But you never know how they're going to play. Alright, then after that we get to the 4 p.m. games. A big one, the NFC, as it's the Seahawks at the Cardinals. As the Seahawks won the last 5. The Cardinals haven't beaten them since 2021. And they haven't beaten the Seahawks at home since 2020. As the Seahawks are in, even though I don't think they're that really good, they're in a good spot right now to start running away with the NFC West. They keep on winning after they beat the Jets on the road and all that. Meanwhile, the Cardinals lost a close one to the Vikings. They choked it away as Kyler Murray played horrible and they couldn't get the job done in the end. Oh boy, so now who do you trust more? So the Seahawks did beat the Cardinals earlier, but I don't think that game was really that convincing. But the Cardinals have been struggling lately. I think I might go against my better judgment, perhaps. And I'm still going to pick the Cardinals for this one. But I won't be surprised if the Seahawks get it. And then we get to a big outer conference matchup. As it's the Bills at the Rams for the first time since 2022. As the Bills won the last 3. The Rams haven't beaten them since 2012. And they haven't beaten the Bills at home since 1983. So the Bills, of course, destroyed the 49ers Sunday night as they've now won like 7 in a row. They've clinched the AFC West, the AFC East for the 5th year in a row. And now it's just trying to catch up to the Chiefs. Just one win and the Chiefs lost. They take the number 1 spot at the moment. But got that done. Meanwhile, the Rams, of course, they beat the Saints. There we go. So they're back at 500 as they're trying to get back over 500 for the first time this year and all that. But they're going to have a tough task with the Bills, and I'm going to pick the Bills for this one. And then it's the Bears at the 49ers for the first time since 2018. As the Bears won the last one, the 49ers haven't beaten them since 2021. And they haven't beaten the Bears at home since 2012. As the Bears are trying to avoid like what? Their fourth straight losing season? And the Bears, if they lose, they're eliminated. So they need to get this win. So the Bears, of course, at first they were getting spanked by the Lions. Then they were pulling off a massive comeback to the point where Caleb Williams outplayed Goff. But then they had their giant goof, and they didn't use their timeout. Why didn't you use your timeout? I think they should have... I don't even necessarily agree with that. They should have done the timeout immediately. They should have freaking gone for the third down play, get a little bit closer, do the timeout, and then send the game into overtime potentially. But they didn't use their timeout. And because that, Matt Eberflus was fired and all that, so now the Bears have a new coach. Meanwhile, the 49ers, oh my goodness, back-to-back blowout losses to the Packers and then the Bills. They are reeling so hard. And they lost McCaffrey for the year, so nothing's going right. Of course, the Madden curse strikes again. But the 49ers still statistically are better than the Bears. So I'm going to pick the 49ers for this one, especially too with the Bears changing coaches. And that usually doesn't go well for teams that change coaches. All right, then it's off to Sunday night, and a huge one in the AFC and the AFC West, as it's the Chargers at the Chiefs. As the Chiefs won the last 6, the Chargers haven't beaten them since 2021. As the Chargers are trying to get their first winning season since 2022. The Chiefs, if they win this game, they'll clinch the AFC West for, God, like the 9th year in a row. So yeah, look, all they need is a win to get secured. So the Chargers, like I said earlier, they beat the Falcons. In a defensive game, the only reason they won is because Kirk Cousins had a complete shit show in that one. So good job for the defense. Meanwhile, the Chiefs barely beat the Raiders on Black Friday when they choked at the end. Man, they really almost blew it right there. So, once again, the concerns about the Chiefs, they're 11-1, but they're still not very that impressive in my eyes. Alright, so yeah, this is going to be a tough game, because they always, these last few years when Herbert came into the Chargers, all their games usually are pretty close. And we already saw early in the year in week 4 how close their game was. So yeah, this could be a defensive struggle too between two elite defenses. But I'm still going to pick the Chiefs for this one, unless the Chargers, and more particularly Herbert, actually plays like the QB he was supposed to be like several years ago. Alright, then we get to Monday night, as it's the Bengals at the Cowboys for the first time since 2022, as the Cowboys won the last 5, the Bengals haven't beaten them since 2004, and they haven't won in Arlington since 1988, as the Bengals try to avoid their first losing season since 2020. So, the Bengals, of course, they got, honestly, even though it was a close game, I feel like they got spanked by the Steelers, as Burrow did not have the best game. And meanwhile, the Cowboys beat the Giants on Thanksgiving to get 2 wins in a row to save their season somewhat, but they're going to have a tough task coming up as they got to face that really good Bengals offense. Only saving grace, they got to face a horrible Bengals defense. But I still trust the Bengals offense more, so I'm going to pick the Bengals for this one. Alright, so those are my Week 14 picks. I cannot wait for the huge Packers and Lions game tonight. So my predictions are the Lions over the Packers, the Dolphins over the Jets, the Vikings over the Falcons, the Saints over the Giants, the Eagles over the Panthers, the Steelers over the Browns, the Buccaneers over the Raiders, the Titans over the Jaguars, the Seahawks over the Cardinals over the Seahawks, I mean to say, the Bills over the Rams, the 49ers over the Bears, the Chiefs over the Chargers, and the Bengals over the Cowboys. Alright, so those are my picks there. See you all next week for my Week 15 picks.